Hey, I'm Sam. Welcome to Brickwell Pictures. Today I'm doing a Michael Mann tier list. I've done a ton of tier lists on this channel for a whole litany of filmmakers and also some actors and martial artists and whatnot. I've been wanting to get to Michael Mann for a long while. I wanted to make sure I had his complete body of work here. There are 11 Michael Mann movies in this tier list in a randomized order here. This is pretty much his entire body of work, not counting TV shows and short films. He has a movie called The Keep that I could not find anywhere. And we're going to get started with Collateral. I could go on and on about this movie. I don't know if I've talked about it on this channel before. I have written about it before, though. Like, I wrote a big piece for Studio Binder about Collateral. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's excellent. It's such a good screenplay with a brilliant premise and like really great character work. It's almost a plot, like the basic plot could be a really simple, straightforward action movie, but the characters are far more complex than is typical of this like action movie fare. The behind the scenes making of process of this, like what Michael Mann puts into this movie, elevates the material so far. You can find he has such extensive backstories for these characters that he then provides, like he gave Tom Cruise a like full biography for the Vincent character, from like his birth all the way through his childhood, growing up, all the jobs he had, his whole background, how he became this elite assassin, all of that. None of that's in the movie. You can't see any of that in the movie, but that level of background and research and like the way that this character is so fully formed in the minds of the people presenting that character, it informs Cruise's performance in like little unseen ways. There's so much nuance there. I think this is one of Tom Cruise's best performances, like easily. I would say probably his best performance, honestly. I'd say his best performances are this and Magnolia, which is more of a supporting role. Also, Jamie Foxx is so good in this. Jamie Foxx actually might be the actor that Michael Mann has worked with the most, because he's in this, he's in Miami Vice, he's also in Ali. He isn't one of those directors who works with the same actors all the time. Michael Mann, by the way, he hasn't had a movie out in a while. Like, his most recent movie is Blackhat, which is like several years old at this point. He's been working on that Ferrari movie for a long time, and I guess that is still in the works. I think it isn't like scrap. This is taking forever to come out. The thing with the action in Collateral is just not that much of it. There are only a couple moments of action, but they are just executed perfectly. Michael Mann is one of the best when it comes to shootouts on screen. He's one of the best action filmmakers out there. He brings a level of realism to it that is often not even attempted in like a movie, a gunfight, for example. And there's some like hand-to-hand combat and some like bladed work in some of his movies too. He's really great with action. Collateral is him in real fine form with those shootouts. They're all really quick is the thing, but the training that he puts his actors through really shows. Like the way Tom Cruise carries himself in the action in this Vincent role is perfect. It's part of what makes the overall performance so good is you believe him as this stone cold, absolutely lethal killer. Like that briefcase scene, the way he so cleanly dispatches those two guys. It's like the choreography is really simple. The moment overall lasts like seconds. Like it's over like that. It's so quick, but he's so smooth and efficient. It just really works. Also, Collateral is notable for being one of the only movies shot digitally that looks great. A lot of movies shot digitally, especially in like this era of digital where it's like digital cameras have progressed a long way since Collateral. It looks very digital here. And also it's actually a mix of digital and film. He's using both here. You can very clearly tell like when it switches and whatnot. Michael Mann knows how to use digital in a way that is stylish, like effectively stylish, in a way where other filmmakers try it, and it doesn't work out so well. Collateral is just really great all around. I don't know if I would go all the way to S. I think I hesitate to go all the way to S. It could maybe be S. It's at least A, though. I don't give out many S's in these tier lists. Collateral's like on the precipice of being an S. I think it's going to be an A, though. It is maybe a little too simple for the S, and also I have some issues with the final action beat. I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say I don't really believe what happens in the end. I'm trying to dance around it because I don't want to spoil it. Let me just say, the way that things shake out at the end, I don't really believe it on a character level. However, I did see a video essay that interpreted that in a different way that I really liked, and if that is what the movie was going for, I can appreciate. But at the same time, if it is what the movie is going for, it's not present enough in the movie to be clear. I think I'm just going to stay vague. I can't really get into this moment without spoiling it. Maybe I'll revisit this at the end of the tier list. I think it's going to be an A. Okay, next up is Miami Vice. Miami Vice I only saw for the first time recently. Actually, I had seen it on like FX or whatever a long time ago, but I grabbed the DVD and I sat down and watched it all the way through, no commercial breaks or whatever, relatively recently. Now, Miami Vice was pretty demolished when it first came out, and then over the years it has been kind of reevaluated, and there are now a lot of fans of this movie. I actually know a few people who consider this like one of the best movies ever made, which I think is ridiculous. I went into this very hopeful, hoping to find a misunderstood masterpiece. As a big fan of Michael Mann. And I gotta say, I actually agree with the reviews of the time from when it first came out. I don't think Miami Vice is very good. I think it's like style for the sake of style. I think it's a very messy script. And it's a shame because I like a lot of what Michael Mann is doing. Some of the style works really well. I would say there are like little pockets of Miami Vice where it's like, oh, this is so good. It makes me want the rest of the movie to be on that level. But my problems with Miami Vice, there's a lot of them. Okay, so let me just briefly touch on some of them. One is I think the characters are really flat, and there's no introduction to these characters. The movie feels like horribly mangled in the edit, where there's like no intro to these characters. It's like it expects you to know who they are, which I guess is maybe for like fans of the TV show, but like they don't really line up on a one-to-one basis. So I feel like you still need to introduce these characters. They don't do that for you. And not in a way where it's like it puts you right in the middle of the action. It's in a way where it feels lacking. Like there's no build-up or no character development. That's missing for me. Two, I think it's very lopsided, especially like a buddy movie. But Colin Farrell has all the focus. Jamie Foxx has like nothing to do with the entire movie. He has like no characterization. It feels like his character really gets short shrift. Three, probably the biggest one for me, is I don't buy the romance whatsoever between Colin Farrell and this like drug kingpin. And I really don't like, it's hard to not read it as like kind of sexist, that she's supposed to be this like hardened drug dealer, this like drug kingpin, crime lord character. Yet the movie just boils her down into a basic like helpless damsel in distress by the end. I think that's kind of bad. And then three, I hate the way that this movie uses music. I don't really like the soundtrack, first of all, but I especially don't like how it's utilized, where the movie, it feels like it devolves into being a series of music videos at some points. So I have a lot of issues with this movie. Now, I do still think that the style works occasionally, and I do still think that the action, when it shows up, is really good. Like, Michael Mann's always good at executing action. The shootout at the end is pretty goddamn good. It's a little less clean than I would have liked. Like, Michael Mann is usually good about clarity. It's a little less clear than usual, but I think it works for what Mann is doing here. I don't love Miami Vice. I think it's a D, honestly. And if you're new to the channel, D on my scale is not like a bad movie all the way through. D is usually like worth watching with low expectations or worth watching with like a caveat. Next is Heat, which I think is Michael Mann's undisputed masterpiece. Heat is an easy S-tier movie. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. Heat is an S-tier movie all the way through. Phenomenal. The tagline I love is a Los Angeles crime saga. I love that he calls it a saga because that's what this is. It feels like a crime saga, whereas we rarely ever get a crime saga. Something crazy that might have missed you because it was relatively recently and wasn't as publicized as it maybe could have been, is he wrote Heat 2 as a novel. And apparently it is like, it's both a sequel and a prequel. I haven't read the book. I'm curious too. But I kind of want to wait until it gets turned into a movie and just watch the movie and then maybe go and read the book afterwards. Anyway, Heat, I feel like I don't need to say too much about Heat. It is like the pinnacle. That shootout is so goddamn good, the big street shootout. That is like the gold standard of movie shootout right there. But then there's other good action throughout the movie as well. And on top of it, good action is one thing, but this also just has great characters, great storytelling, and phenomenal performances. Pacino and De Niro are so good. And, Val Kilmer's got to get his due. He is so good in this as well. Also, I feel like a lot of the supporting cast gets overlooked. Like, Mykelti Williamson's in this. He's great. You've got young Natalie Portman in this, which is whoa, you forget she's even in this, but she's in there. And she's good. This is Leon era. Tom Noonan's in there. Tom Sizemore's in there. William Fichtner's in there. It's just you go on and on. It's every little role is cast with a brilliant character actor or some big star. Okay, Manhunter. Manhunter I really like, but it also has some things that I don't like. Manhunter's a tricky one. If you didn't know, Manhunter is actually an adaptation of the Thomas Harris book Red Dragon. This is a Hannibal Lecter movie. It's actually the first Hannibal Lecter movie. I don't really know why they changed the title. I'm sure there's some reason for it, but they adapted Red Dragon, which is the first Hannibal Lecter book, into Manhunter. Some people think that the first Hannibal Lecter movie is Silence of the Lambs. It's actually the second, though it is the first of its canon. It's the first Anthony Hopkins one, and then he came back in Hannibal and in Red Dragon. They basically readapted Red Dragon into the Brett Ratner movie, which is not a good adaptation. This is better than the Red Dragon movie, the one that's titled Red Dragon. In this one, Hannibal Lecter is played by Brian Cox, who is a brilliant actor, and his take on Hannibal is much smaller than Anthony Hopkins, meaning subtler, more reserved, but he's really good. It's another really good Hannibal. It's crazy how many good Hannibals there are because Mads Mikkelsen is also phenomenal as Hannibal on the TV show. Manhunter is a really good adaptation when it comes to the procedural elements of it. Red Dragon's a great book, by the way. It's honestly up there with my favorite crime novels. It's a really phenomenal book. I think it's a better book than Silence of the Lambs, so I do think the Silence of the Lambs movie is a better movie than the Red Dragon book or movie. The Hannibal book, by the way, the one that's just Hannibal, is not great, and then Hannibal Rising is fucking awful, the movie. So yeah, Manhunter, it's great stylistically. Michael Mann, I would say especially, excels at the procedural, the crime-solving aspects, the DNA analysis and the crime scene investigation. I think William Peterson is a great fit for this role, and he is an actor who I always wanted to see him have bigger roles. He's just CSI guy now because that's the only other big role of his career. He had Manhunter. He had To Live and Die in L.A., which is a great William Friedkin movie, another underrated one. And then he basically, Hollywood kind of stopped giving him leading man roles. And I guess I can get it, he's a little weirder, a little more eccentric than the typical leading man. I think he's really good though. He's really great in this. He's a good fit for the character. I will say I do prefer Hugh Dancy in the TV show is a better fit for the Will Graham character. Manhunter is good. Weirdly, the worst part about Manhunter is the shootout, which is crazy to say about a Michael Mann movie. The shootout is straight up bad. Michael Mann was going experimental with it. He does these freeze frames and this weird editing. I think it's a mess. It's a jumble. It's hard to follow what's happening. It looks bad. It's not exciting. The shootout is terrible. And more than just it being poorly executed, the shootout is not good on a story level. That shootout is not how the book wraps up. I think the story goes, they ran out of either time and or money. Usually those are inextricably linked on a film set. They ran out of time and or money making the movie, and they couldn't do the actual ending and the resolution of the Francis Dollarhide character, so they instead did this shootout, and it's not executed well. Even if it was executed well, let's say it's on the level of Michael Mann's usual, really great shootouts, it still isn't the right story way to draw this film to a conclusion. It's just messy. It doesn't really deliver on what everything's been building towards. So that's a big letdown. And it hurts the movie a lot for me. I think the movie could maybe be as high as an A without that ending. I'm going to bring it down to a B. I think it does kind of squander a lot of what the movie has built up towards. I also want to make sure I mention Tom Noonan is phenomenal as Dollarhide, the villain in this one. He's excellent, so creepy. Tom Noonan's great in general, and this is one of his best roles, I think. Okay, next up is Thief. Thief is great. I think it was underrated for a long time, but it has kind of gotten its due over the last just couple of years. I think relatively recently, like it got brought into the Criterion Collection and whatnot. Thief is really good. It's one of James Caan's best roles, starring role for him. It's also one of Michael Mann's first movies. I think it's his first feature film, not counting his like TV movies. Thief is really good. It's basically a heist movie, as you could probably guess by the title. James Caan is a like safe cracker. One of the best parts about Michael Mann is how he does research and how he has his actors do research, how he puts them through training. And like basically James Caan learned how to like actually become a diamond thief in this one. Like he learned how to crack a safe for real. When he's cracking the safe in the movie, they're basically doing it for real. Like he's cracking a safe for real, using those tools at that like really high temperature where all the sparks and all that. Like it's not special effects, he's really doing it, which is really cool. And you buy him in this role. It's a great performance and a great character. Again, it's very simple. Like it's a very simplistic story, but it's executed in a more nuanced and realistic way than this genre also has. It has another big shootout climax from Michael Mann. I will say it's not one of his best shootouts, but it is really cool. It's more like made in the moments than the overall shootout, I would say. Like there's that great shot where James Caan does this like stylish reload where the camera's doing this like big sweeping motion and it's in slow-mo and it's like super smooth. Like that's awesome. I think he overuses the slow motion a little bit. It's basically like slow motion the entire way through, which I think is not the best way to use slow motion. Yeah, he learned how to use slow motion better in his later movies. It's still a cool shootout though, but more importantly, it's just like a really great performance and a great character. Thief is one that, for right now, it feels like a B to me, but I wouldn't be surprised if the next time I watch it, it bumps up to an A. Okay, next is Public Enemies. Public Enemies is one that I watched before I knew who Michael Mann was and before I knew he directed this. Like I watched this when it came out, and I was young. How old would I have been? I would have been about 12 when Public Enemies came out. And I saw it in the theater. I remember falling asleep in the theater, I think. Or maybe just like not being that into it. And then afterwards, I remember checking it out on DVD from the library and rewatching it and still not being into it. And then I think I watched it a third time, like wanting to like it more. It's just still not being into it. I don't know what it is about this movie because it feels like it has all the ingredients of a great movie. And again, it has like the big shootouts that Michael Mann's known for. And it's interesting, like as a change of pace, because he's obviously this one's a period piece, and he's using like old Tommy guns. And I remember he's setting the shoots like out in nature, which is interesting, because like he's using like swibs to like demolish trees and like nature and stuff, which is interesting. That's different than a lot of shootouts. And like you have good actors. Like this is Johnny Depp when he was still mostly giving good performances before he, I don't know, like forgot how to act when he got too wrapped up in himself and his weird like his scarves and before he just started playing like Jack Sparrow in every movie, you know. And Christian Bale is good in most movies. Marion Cotillard is in there, I think that's her if I'm remembering correctly. And she's like always good at everything. But for whatever reason, this one just never connected with me, no matter how many times I watched it. The story falls a little flat. And again, it's like it has the right ingredients for a good story. You know, John Dillinger is obviously a larger than life figure. You can obviously make a great story out of John Dillinger in this story. I think it just doesn't really work. I think it's another D, unfortunately. Okay, next up is Ali. Ali was the last movie I had left to watch for my Michael Mann tier list. If I'm being honest, I might not have watched it like ever if I wasn't doing this tier list. I probably would have eventually, but I wouldn't have been in any hurry to get to it. And you know what? I was blown away. I really liked this. I liked this way more than I expected to. My expectations were, pretty low, and this movie far surpassed my expectations. I thought Will Smith was excellent in this, and I'm like not really a Will Smith fan. I like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I like The First Men in Black. I think he's okay sometimes. I think he's really bad other times. I thought he was excellent in this. I think he deserves the Oscar nomination that he got for it. Not really a fan of his in general so much, especially like these days with the whole, I don't need to get into that. I think it's a really good script. Like the reason why I wasn't so into it is because like I don't really care about boxing. Muhammad Ali, like interesting figure I guess, but I'm not like a fan of Ali as a person. So I wasn't like, too interested in seeing his life story beyond like what I just knew already. I wasn't interested in like it's a big biopic, right? Like there's so many like Oscar-y biopics. Biopics are like a favorite of the Academy. And so many biopics are like, it's like, yeah, they're good, but they feel very samey. This one really impressed me. It felt like it had a great script for a biopic. It feels like you could consider this a fault with it. And I kind of consider it a fault with it myself. It doesn't affect the movie too much, but I do think it only touches on such a small sliver of Muhammad Ali's life. Like I was definitely expecting it to track more of his like rise to fame, rise to success. Like at the start of the movie, he's like already the world champion. It doesn't have like his training and his getting good or whatever. Like it skips past all that. And then I found it a little laughable that at the end of the movie, we watch this whole big ordeal, and then the end title just like in one sentence goes, by the way, he did this same thing like 2 more times throughout his life. It's like, okay, that seems worth dramatizing, but I can see why, it would probably take a whole second and or third movie to do that. But I think maybe the movie benefits from not trying to cram too much into here. It is a pretty long movie, but I will say I was engaged the entire way. This is a long movie where it didn't feel its length. It felt like it breezed right by. You could have told me this was a 90-minute movie, and I would have believed you. I liked that it didn't like overly sanitize him. Like it shows him cheating and being a real like misogynist in a lot of ways. I don't like when a biopic tries to like, make their person really squeaky clean when they might not have been in real life. So I appreciate that. It felt honest. I loved how this was shot. It's again Michael Mann working with a lot of like digital cinematography. I thought it looked excellent. I loved the cinematography choices for this thing, stylistically especially. Like I feel like Michael Mann was just really at the top of his game visually when he put this one together. I liked it a lot. I don't know if it quite goes to A because it does have some of those like biopic trappings and some of the scope issues and whatnot. I think it's a B though. A really strong B whereas I was expecting it to maybe be a C or D. Okay, next one is Blackhat. I was excited for Blackhat because it was his first movie in a while. Michael Mann doesn't pump out movies very quickly, especially these days. And Blackhat was a real disappointment. I did not like it. I will say the action scenes are cool. They're very well executed. Like there's that fight in the restaurant, which is like the first burst of action, the first like real burst of action. It's a cool fight scene. It feels, it feels punchy. Feels those hits feel hard. Chris Hemsworth I think is really good at doing action. Like I actually liked more than a lot of people. I think that movie that I can't remember the name of because it's kind of generic. Extraction. I was impressed by the action of the movie. I wasn't impressed by the story or characters or anything. That's all very generic and very lackluster. But the action of the movie was impressive, and I would say the way Chris Hemsworth carried himself in the action sequences, I'm definitely on board for more Chris Hemsworth action, given the right context and hopefully given a better script and character. But this is just not a good story. It's not a good script. I think Michael Mann is mostly doing good work in like the directorial department, but I think the writing really comes up short. And again, the romance is awful. It's like not believable whatsoever. The love interest is such a shallow, flat character. And it's kind of weird how similar the romance feels to the Miami Vice romance. Like it's like the exact same dynamic between the two characters, and it falls flat in the same way in both of them. Conversely, like there's a really great romance in Heat. Like I fully believe the romance in that. And like you can tell that like Michael Mann, he's always taking these like crime stories and injecting romance into them and trying to treat them as like an equal-handed kind of way. Like Collateral I think the romance in Collateral is one of the weaker elements of that movie. It's not bad, but I honestly think the problem with it in Collateral might just be that she doesn't have as much screen time, which is kind of just the nature of the plot of the like taxi driver one night narrative. You couldn't do too much more with the romance in it, but it definitely feels a little shallow. Heat has a really good romance, kind of multiple good romances, because like I buy both of the bad guys romance, like the Val Kilmer romance and the Robert De Niro romance, and then the Al Pacino romance is really interesting and complicated and adds an interesting layer to that character. The world of Heat just feels so fully formed, but here I am just gushing about Heat again. Blackhat is, it honestly might be my least favorite of his movies. I think it's an E, actually. I don't like Blackhat a whole lot. This movie has some defenders, and I guess I can understand that. Now, okay, let's talk about the action real quick. This is going to be a very long show because I have a lot to say about all of Michael Mann's movies, it turns out. Some of the action is really cool. I really like how Michael Mann executes it. But I feel like its purpose in the plot isn't always as justified. It almost feels like action for the sake of action, whereas... And I guess you could say that, you could argue that for some of Michael Mann's other movies, but they do feel more vital to the plot of his other movies. And this one feels like they're kind of shoved in there, or like they're made a bigger deal than they need to be. The action's kind of cool. Like the shootouts are okay. I like the execution of the ending knife bit. Like I liked how brutal and like how efficient that was conveyed as the main character's like the way he pulled that off. I liked the execution of it, but I don't really. The scene doesn't do anything for me, though. Like, its purpose in the narrative doesn't do anything for me. Also, one issue with the action in this that I don't think is an issue in any of his other movies is you can really feel a sense of plot armor for these characters that I don't think his other movies have. Like, it's so inconsistent about, like, the physics. And this is where, like, his action is usually defined by realism. Like a commendable commitment to realism. That was really lacking for me in Blackhat. I would say it's exemplified by the moment where like the movie shows that like these high caliber bullets are going straight through like both sides of a metal shipping container and hitting the people on the other side. Like that's cool. That's a fun moment, right? But then later on when Chris Hemsworth is on the street, he hides behind this little like sidewalk advertisement, this like thin little like flimsy metal sign, and that is now stopping bullets. Like, come on, where's the consistency? Where's the realism that you're like promising me from earlier on in the movie? I don't know. So that takes me out of it. I mean, that's like a small thing, but like it's a lot of things like that add up to bigger issues. I gotta think the romance issue is a much bigger issue, especially considering how like central it is to the plot. I just don't believe it. They have zero chemistry. Hemsworth and I don't know who the love interest was. Tang Wei is her name. She's not bad. I don't think she's a bad actress or anything. I just think they do not have any chemistry with each other. That might be the two actors. It might be the script. I think it's probably a combination of the two. And Tang Wei's been good in other movies. Like she was also in Decision to Leave, if you didn't realize that's the same person. And she's really good in that. This one really feels its length as opposed to Ali. And like Ali breezed right by, and Ali is like 20 minutes longer than Blackhat. Blackhat felt substantially longer than Ali did. And it feels long because so much of this movie doesn't need to be in here. It feels like a case of like a lack of editing, like a lack of a tight grip on the script. Michael Mann just like going, like not being willing to like kill your darlings, as they say, right? Like, and I guess you could say, like, in Heat, there is a lot of stuff in there that you could technically cut out, and the story would still work. Like, you could cut out some of the subplots in Heat, and it would still work. But those subplots elevate the material, make it feel more cohesive, make the world feel more alive. In Blackhat, it just feels like there's a lot of fluff that should be on the cutting room floor. Anyway, that's enough about Blackhat. I have a lot of issues with it. I don't think it works so well. Though it does have a couple of strengths, and it's not entirely without merit. Okay, next up is LA Takedown. This is probably his least watched movie out of this bunch. If you didn't know, LA Takedown is the direct predecessor to Heat. That's why the poster is blue and kind of looks like this. They redid the poster to make it look like Heat. LA Takedown is a TV movie. I guess I do actually have one of his TV movies in here. I was saying I didn't do his TV movies, but I have this one because this one's interesting. This one's worth talking about. LA Takedown is the same story as Heat. Michael Mann made it earlier on. He didn't have the budget to do Heat, and he didn't have like the full script or whatever. So he did LA Takedown as a TV movie, and then he later remade his own movie as Heat, and it's much, much better as Heat. I will say LA Takedown is mostly worth watching for the curiosity of comparing the two. If you've already seen Heat and you love Heat, it's worth watching LA Takedown for like the novelty of it. If you haven't seen Heat, do not like watch LA Takedown first or anything like that. Just go into Heat and you can just stick to Heat. You don't need to watch LA Takedown. It's by far, it's not like an essential movie. Heat is like the definitive telling of this story. You don't need to watch both of them. But it is worth watching to like compare the two. It's a very flawed movie. It's really held back by its budget. It's also held back considerably by the like TV movie limitations, like the commercial breaks. You know, it's got like the hard like fade to black, fade back in for black moments that like interrupt the flow of the movie. It also has the like 4:3 aspect ratio as opposed to the widescreen aspect ratio, which Michael Mann is very much a filmmaker who thrives in the with his like widescreen compositions. His compositions, his framing, and also I would say his camera movement to an extent feel very limited by the made-for-TV aesthetic. Also, this is going with the budget, but it feels like everything's shot much more simply, much more plainly. There's considerably less style, and that's because of limited resources. The performances are also weaker. He didn't have Pacino and De Niro at this point. And I will say the best part of LA Takedown is still the shootout. The shootout's still a lot of fun. It's nowhere near as good as Heat, like the big centerpiece shootout. It's nowhere near as good, but it's still fun, and it is still like better than a lot of movie shootouts, even for the lower budget and the more restrained approach. LA Takedown, honestly, still worth watching, and I like it more than either of these two. C might be pushing it. It probably is still a D. I would rather rewatch LA Takedown than rewatch either of these, I'll say. Okay, our penultimate movie here is Last of the Mohicans. This one feels a little outside the box for Michael Mann. It's outside his sweet spot. It's one of his only movies that isn't like a crime film. I guess Ali isn't either. The Insider is a crime film in a sense, but not in the typical sense. Like The Insider doesn't have like action components. Last of the Mohicans still has the action component. There's some fight scenes, there are some like battle sequences, and they got pretty big in scope. It's telling a very non-Michael Mann-ish story, I would say. Last of the Mohicans, I think, has some like really high strengths, but it just doesn't really work for me on a script level. I don't think the script is like terrible or anything, but I do think it is lacking in character, and it's lacking in a like core story engine to make me care about what's happening. I would say visually, it is like stunning at times. The action is like okay. I think Mann is better with gunplay than he is with the like, the action here. Like there's still gunplay, but it's like muskets and stuff, muskets and like bayonets and stuff. I think he's better when it's like with like modern weaponry and stuff. I think that's where his type of action really shines. But it's okay. It's not bad. It's fine. The music is really good at points too. Like good music, good visuals, but the story, it never got me invested in these characters. Daniel Day-Lewis, phenomenal actor, of course, but this is probably the performance of his that I was least invested in. I think that just comes down to the character not being all that interesting, not being all that compelling. He does his method acting, of course. I think he like built a canoe during this movie. I think that's what he did for this one. But like whatever. I don't know. The character's kind of a little simplistic. The plot's pretty simplistic too. I don't find the plot all that engaging. This one is exceptionally well made, but it's making something just kind of mediocre very well. And I will say it's elevating the material a little bit, but not enough to the point where like I never felt immersed in this world. I never felt like I was engrossed in these characters' lives. The highest I can give it is a C, though I do really respect all the technical craft going on here. Okay, The Insider. The Insider is a movie that I thought I was rewatching it when I went to rewatch it for this tier list because I thought I'd seen it a long time ago. Turns out I never saw it before. I was thinking of some other movie. I was thinking of that movie, State of Play, I think is what I was thinking of actually. So when I started rewatching The Insider, I was like, oh, I don't remember this. I don't remember this. I don't remember this. Oh, I've never seen this before. So yeah, it was the first time watch. And I gotta say, I loved this. So like the same way that Ali impressed me, The Insider impressed me, like blew my expectations out of the water. And I think it's an S tier movie. Like, I was not expecting that going into this. I was not expecting The Insider to be my like second favorite Michael Mann movie. I think it is that goddamn good. I was not expecting it to beat Collateral for me because I love Collateral so much. I think The Insider is better. And it's Michael Mann's like least actiony movie. Like even Ali has like the boxing matches, which are pretty actiony. I think it's his only one with like no action at all. And even then there is still some like, there are tense scenes. Like there are scenes where, Russell Crowe's like being stalked and he like has his gun searching the garden and stuff like that. It's extremely tense. Just to compare it directly to Last of the Mohicans. I was never engrossed in that one. I was so engrossed in The Insider. Like my heart was beating. I was like sweating. Like I was on the edge of my seat the entire movie. This is just okay, I want to be clear here. I've complained about some script issues with some of those other movies. I need to give the highest praise to the script of The Insider. This is a phenomenal screenplay. So it was nominated for It was nominated. It was nominated for a whole bunch of Oscars. Didn't win any of them. It was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. I want to see what it was up against because I kind of think, without knowing what it was directly up against, I feel like it maybe should have won because it's a fantastic screenplay. What was it up against? I mean, I haven't seen the Cider House Rules, but like, okay, I've seen Election. I've seen The Green Mile. I actually haven't seen The Talented Mr. Ripley yet. I'm going to watch this one relatively soon, I think. I mean, I definitely think The Insider is a better script than either of these two. And I like both of these movies a lot. It shows you how much I like The Insider. Three phenomenal performances, I would say, because also the two are on the poster here, Al Pacino and Russell Crowe. But also Christopher Plummer is so good in his supporting role. I was shocked by how good The Insider was. I guess maybe that just has to do with my like expectations. I don't know. I think this is easily one of his best movies. Pacino gives one of his best performances of the 90s. I would say the same about Heat. Michael Mann kind of got the best of Pacino's 90s output. I think it's Russell Crowe's best performance. And Russell Crowe's given some really good performances over the years. I think it's my favorite Russell Crowe performance. Like, it's better than Gladiator. I prefer it over like A Beautiful Mind. I think he's really good on that too. When Michael Mann is working with a top-notch script like this, it justifies and it accentuates all of his brilliant stylistic work. When he's working with a lesser screenplay, his stylized directorial flourishes, they feel like they matter less. It starts to feel more like style over substance. The Insider has the style and the substance. It is so good. These are his top three for me, but I recommend the S, A, and B tiers very strongly. So even though there are a couple of lower movies on this ranking, I still love Michael Mann overall. Anyway, thanks for watching. Check out my other tier list. And I will also say check out my Best Director of All Time tournament. I'll be doing more tournaments in the future. My Best Western tournament might be out by the time you're seeing this. Michael Mann is in my Best Director tournament. He was definitely worth a nomination in there. I will say the unevenness of his career, how he has like such highs but also some lows, that held him back in the overall tournament placement. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. So long.